going on, everybody? It's your man, Louie T, here on the eve of the 2025 NFL Draft. It is finally almost here. You're seeing a lot of people's final mock drafts or their one and only mock draft. And these are the ones that you really should be paying attention to. You know, the people that put out 25 mock drafts, 4.0, 5.0, 6.0, those generally are for show, entertainment purposes. But the last mock, the one that comes out right before the draft, the day before, the day of, those are the ones that you should be paying attention to from people who have sources and contacts within the NFL circles. And it will give you a better understanding of, where teams are, what their thought process is. It's not etched in stone, obviously, but we've gotten to the point now where we can sift through all of the minutia and get straight to business. And we're going to do a little bit of that today. We're going to talk about some players that you should be looking out for as trade bait. That's right. A lot of players could potentially be available during this draft. Certain players get selected by certain teams. Certain players become expendable. You know how this goes. We'll talk about it here and anything else draft related under the sun on the LouieTeeNetwork podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 499th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I am, of course, your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So, we have finally arrived. Tonight, I will be doing my big draft show where we will talk about everything draft related. Talk about all the teams. I'm not going to do a mock draft this year, a full first round mock. I was debating on whether I was going to do one or not. And really, it just was time. The last couple of years, I put so much time into these mock drafts, and I just haven't been getting the return on investment that I was looking for. But it's still something that I enjoy doing. So I planned on doing one, but ultimately, time was not on my side. So something had to get scrapped. It ended up being that, but we're still going to have a big draft conversation tonight. All the things that I've read, all the things that I'm hearing from various sources, not my sources, like I have sources or anything like that, but people that are in the know, that I follow, that I listen to, that I don't want to say I trust, but that I value their opinion, right? So I try to put all those things into one big show tonight, and we'll talk about a number of different topics and a number of very intriguing teams. And we'll do a little bit of that today on the show as well. But today on the podcast, I really want to focus on trade bait, because I truly believe there are going to be players that can be had during this draft. Now, certain things have to go a certain way, obviously. Like, things have to fall into place for these things to take place, right? For these things to happen. But there are some real names that are available, I believe, if certain teams are able to get their guy in the draft. I've always told you that deadlines spur action. This is the deadline, the draft. And a lot of times teams wait to make sure that they get the replacement first. Again, it's the the old adage, don't quit your job until you have one, right? You have another one. And so this is the same premise. Like, don't get rid of a player until you have his replacement. I can see a number of guys then becoming expendable, therefore trade bait. Then the other question becomes, are you as a team who is interested in said player willing to part ways with whatever it's going to take? And sometimes it doesn't take as much during the draft. So with that said, let's jump into our gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I want to start with the Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. We've heard rumblings about them being interested in moving tight end Dallas Goedert. He is an integral part of their offense. However, he is oft injured. And I think the Eagles are at the point now in a very deep and talented tight end draft class are interested in finally moving on from him. The tight end position is very important in their offense. They like Grant Calcaterra, but he's not Dallas Goedert. And so I do think they are willing to move Dallas Goedert, but they first have to get his replacement. They're going to have ample opportunities in this draft, and there are several guys that I think would fit the mold in Philadelphia. I hope they don't get their hands on them, but with all the draft capital that they have and all the ability that they will have to get said tight end, I have no doubts that whatever tight end they seek outside of the top two, more likely than not, and even if they wanted, say, Colston Loveland, they have the draft ammunition to go up and get him. So the Eagles are very intriguing, but whomever their target is at the tight end position, I think they're going to get said player. And once they do, Dallas Goedert is now up for sale, essentially. And I think there's going to be some intrigue surrounding him. We heard rumors at one point that the New York Giants were interested in a potential Dallas Goedert trade. I don't know if that still exists. Again, teams that are interested in trading for a player either feel like they're close, which the Giants are not, or they missed out on, the position. And now they're going to, or there was a certain guy that they wanted and he wasn't on the board at the time of their selection, whatever the case may be. Dallas Goedert will be available, I believe, once the Eagles secure their tight end of the future. And that's a name to look out for in this draft. Also, while we're talking about the Super Bowl defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, I think the minute that they signed Bryce Huff to that 3-year contract, they got buyer's remorse and realized they probably had just made a mistake. They should have just given that money to Hassan Reddick. But all's well that ends well. Reddick hasn't done jack diddly poo squat since leaving Philadelphia because that saga turned ugly with the Jets. And Bryce Huff's lack of health and productivity hasn't hurt them one iota. They won the Super Bowl without him, and thus they realized we don't need him. The question is, who are you going to be able to pawn that contract off on? No one's trying to pay Bryce Huff, 14, 15, 16, 17 mil, whatever that number is per year. I think it was a 3-year 51 or 3-year 47 or something like that. Whatever it was, no one's trying to pay that. So while Bryce Huff may be available, I don't see anybody biting on that particular trade bait. But Goedert is very fascinating, still got good football left in him, still one of the better pass-catching tight ends in the league. And thus, I believe once they secure their tight end of the future, Goedert will be on the block. Talking about the Giants, speaking of said Giants, Their situation is very intriguing because they're in a position to net themselves one of the best prospects in this year's draft class. Depending on how things shake out with the Cleveland Browns, and we know that the Giants are still in, the running for Shedeur Sanders, but it doesn't feel like that's the direction they're going to go at number 3 overall. Assuming the Browns take Travis Hunter, which a lot of people feel like they're going to do, that would put the Giants in a position, and they and the Browns have both said that they're open for business if a team wanted to come up. I don't see any team giving up what either one of those teams are going to want in return to move up, thus forcing those teams to stick and pick. Feels like the Browns are going to take Travis Hunter, and it feels like the Giants are going to take Penn State all-world, call him linebacker, edge rusher, Abdul Carter. So in the event that takes place, obviously they just traded for Brian Burns last offseason, gave him a massive extension. He's a part of their future. You draft Abdul Carter. He is now locked in for the next, more likely than not, 5 years, assuming something going catastrophically wrong. Bare minimum. Where does that leave Kayvon Thibodeau? I think out in the cold is where it leaves him. He's dealt with some injuries over the last, year or two. He's been somewhat productive, but I think if you ask Giants fans, that's a mirage. He's a solid player, but he isn't going to live up to the pick that the Giants spent on him in the top 10 of the NFL draft. And thus, I believe Kayvon Thibodeau, should Abdul Carter be the pick at 3 for the Giants, is available. And again, this is a deep edge rusher class, similar to the Eagles, looking to move Dallas Goedert potentially. If teams get what they need in the draft, it pulls down the value of trading for a guy like Dallas Goedert, or in this case, Kayvon Thibodeau. A lot of edge rushers, a lot of different flavors. Whatever you're looking for, you can probably find in this draft. And so why give up draft capital in the future and have to potentially pay Kayvon Thibodeau when you can just get you a nice, cheap option with more upside in this year's draft class? But if you're a team that's looking to win, say a Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for instance, just throwing out a random team, right, that could use edge rusher help. Obviously, they signed Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal. They're starving for someone to come in there and give them some production. And you feel like you're close. You're one of the better teams in your division and arguably one of the better teams in the conference. You're not that far away. 2 years ago, you were in the divisional round. Last year, you won your division and hosted a home playoff game. Who's to say that you don't miss out on all the edge rushers chasing after other positions? I mean, Bucks could go edge rusher in the first round. Obviously, that's on the table. But let's say that instead of going edge rusher, you go corner in the first round instead. And tell yourself, we'll double back, we'll get an edge rusher later. And by the time you look up, a lot of the guys that you were really intrigued by are gone, and you still will have an opportunity to draft one, but maybe it's not the difference maker you're looking for. Say a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau becomes available, maybe that intrigues a team like a Tampa Bay, right? Or a Seattle or someone of that ilk. We'll see what happens. In these instances, I feel like it's tough to get a team to bite when there's so many options available via the draft, right? But there aren't going to be a lot of winning options at quarterback in this draft in terms of right now. And that's where the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Cousins come into play. Now, a lot of times with players, once a team is willing to eat the bonus money, which the Falcons have already done, it makes it less likely that they're going to trade said player, in this case, Kirk Cousins. They've already said, and they've put their money where their mouth is, that they're fully, capable and absolutely cool with keeping Kirk Cousins on the roster as a backup. They're very content if no one gives them what they're looking for. I think the big hang up with the Falcons right now, as far as in Kirk Cousins is concerned, and his trade status, is simply how much of the salary of Kirk Cousins are the Falcons willing to eat. I think there are teams out there that would give the Falcons proper compensation from a draft standpoint, but the Falcons are like, if you want him, we're not eating all of this money. We rather, if that's the case, we'll just keep him on the roster. He's of more use to us if we're going to pay, a large chunk of his salary. He's of more use to us as a backup in case something happens with our second-year quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., than he is to give him away to you and still be paying him a substantial amount of money. We don't want him gone that bad. This isn't one of those situations. Kirk Cousins has shown up to the offseason program. There's no, issue right now. He's not causing a stir or a ruckus. He's getting paid a lot of money, so he's going to toe the line. So someone's going to have to ante up. There's got to be a team desperate enough to do it, I feel like. I think this is the time we see Kirk Cousins get flipped. And I believe it's the Cleveland Browns. There is no way you can convince me that the only trade that they're making for a quarterback this year is for Kenny Pickett. Now, again, they'll have multiple opportunities to select a quarterback. They're not going to do it at 2. They have the 33rd pick, which is the very first pick in the second round. That's an opportunity if you didn't get your guy or you didn't go back into the first round to get your guy, to go get him, right? Right there at 33. There'll be another opportunity. If I'm not mistaken, the Browns have, I think, 2 second-round picks. So they'll have ample opportunities to do whatever they feel is necessary at the quarterback position. But they also have the ammunition to go out and acquire a quarterback, like a Derek Carr, for instance. We'll get to him in a second. But Cousins feels like the right fit for the Browns offense. And being that he played in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, which is an extension of what Kevin Stefanski runs, it just feels like that's a fit. And the Browns need a quarterback. And so could we see the Browns make a move? Possibly, but the biggest hang up with Cleveland is the financials. And that's the same thing that the Falcons are saying. Look, we're not going to eat a bunch of this salary. If you want him, we'll eat some of it. We got no problems doing that, but we're not eating a substantial amount. You're going to have, you want him, you take on the salary, right? And the Browns just aren't in that position. They've restructured Deshaun Watson, it feels like 57 times. They just gave Myles Garrett this massive extension. They're not in a position to be out here trading for Kirk Cousins and giving him a pretty penny. They need that Russell Wilson deal from last year where the Broncos just wanted him gone and they just said, we'll cut him, we'll pay him. And Russell Wilson was like, I'll damn near work for free. I'm still getting my full salary from the Broncos. I'll come in here for the vet minimum. That's the type of time the Browns are on. That's not the type of time the Atlanta Falcons are on, however. And so I still think there's a chance Kirk gets dealt tomorrow or Friday even. But it feels like at the same time, the Falcons are way too comfortable holding on to him. And if you're not willing to meet the Falcons at least halfway, because what it sounds like is a lot of teams are banking on the Falcons crumbling under the financial pressure, and they're just not. They're like, no, we're cool. No, seriously, we're good. If that's the case, then I don't see Kirk Cousins getting traded. They've already taken on the over $20 million bonus that he got for being on the roster. I think it was March the 15th, I believe it was. So they're cool. They're not tripping, obviously. So if that's the case, I can see Atlanta just holding on to Kirk Cousins, but he feels like a guy that definitely could be on the move. Speaking of quarterbacks on the move, let's talk about Derek Carr. We had a conversation about him on a previous podcast episode, and his saga is getting very interesting in New Orleans. He wanted out after the Saints pretty much told him to his face, hey, we're going to draft a young quarterback this year. And he was like, I'm no placeholder. I'm Derek effing Carr. And there's like, okay, what does that mean? Cool. We're still drafting a quarterback. And so all of a sudden, his shoulder just got all kinds of sore and required surgery. And the Saints are not happy with how this thing has unfolded. And further proof of that, I don't know if you heard Saints GM Mickey Loomis, as all general managers have spoken to the media with their pre-draft presser, he got a little upset after a couple of Derek Carr questions were lobbed at him, which he had to know they were coming. And he said, look, I'm not discussing Derek Carr, but if you want to talk about the draft, I'm more than welcome and open to doing that. So that tells me that he's frustrated, that he doesn't like the way the situation has gone thus far, and he doesn't have answers. Derek Carr has not showed up to the OTAs. Derek Carr is not interested in showing up to the OTAs. Derek Carr does not want to be a New Orleans Saints right now. Problem is, he doesn't have a choice. He does not have a choice. But I can tell you the number for the Saints isn't that bad after the restructure. And now the dead cap is a sumbitch. And the Saints are already in a pretty tough spot. I just don't see how this makes sense for them to move Derek Carr. And I don't think they plan on doing that either. However, just something to note that Carr wants out. He's trying to force his way out. I don't think it's going to work. But if it were going to occur, now would be the time during the draft. Part of the reason I decided to do this today is because of the news that we got maybe a day or two ago of Lions wide receiver Jameson Williams, J-Mo, as they affectionately call him in Detroit, is potentially on the block to be traded during the draft. This guy is a dynamic and explosive playmaking receiver and a guy that can change the game for any NFL franchise looking for an upgrade at the wide receiver position. It's why the Lions traded all the way up to, I believe, 12th overall to get him when he was coming out of Ohio State, I believe. It was, yes, Ohio State. He had started out at Alabama and then transferred over to Ohio State. So it was interesting to see when he was healthy how dynamic he was and how drastically he changed the Lions offense. What's also been very interesting is how often he's either been injured, but more likely than not, in some sort of trouble with the league. He's been suspended, I think, multiple times. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed, right? When it comes to decision making, whether it's humping the ground on national television in a playoff game after a tremendous, breathtaking touchdown on a reverse, or throwing the football on a play where your guy is blanketed and ended up throwing an interception that pretty much iced the game for the Commanders. Whatever the case may be, you can't deny the talent. It's abundant. You can't deny that this guy is a playmaker and dynamic, but the Lions might be fed up. And when you're a team that has set your culture to toughness and grit and doing things the right way, Jameson Williams may not fit into that culture. But there are a number of teams that are like, to hell with all that shit you're talking about. We'll sign up for some J-Mo. And I'm going to tell you right now, there aren't many guys in this year's draft class that look like Jameson Williams. That's for sure. If he were in this draft, he'd probably be the second best receiver behind Travis Hunter. So, yeah. Knowing that he could be available, the Lions aren't going to give him away, obviously. But for the right price, this kind of feels like when the Baltimore Ravens dealt Hollywood Brown to the Arizona Cardinals. I'd say maybe 4 years ago, it feels like. To pair him up with his old college teammate and Kyler Murray, this kind of feels like one of those situations. Remember when A.J. Brown got traded and none of us saw it coming? There was a little bit of a money issue in Tennessee. He wanted to get paid. Mike Vrabel wanted to pay him. The general manager at the time didn't. So he traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we've seen the trajectory of both of those franchises after that trade. J-Mo feels like he's available and he can be had. What team will step up and give up the necessary draft capital to get him will be intriguing because he is a difference maker. So we'll see. Oh, I had it backwards. He started out at Ohio State and then transferred to Alabama. Okay. And it was one or the other. It all starts to run together after a while. But he's available, I think. We'll see what happens. Sticking in that division, one of the more low-key intriguing situations was that of Jair Alexander in Green Bay. I talked about that on this podcast very briefly, though, because not a lot has been said about the situation. But anytime a team is non-committal on a player, it tells you all you need to know about said player and their standing within that organization. If I love a player, if he's a part of my future, I'm just going to tell you, right? I'm going to tell you as much. I have nothing to hide. I have no reason to beat around the bush or evade the question. I'm just going to tell you, we see him as a part of our future. He's one of us, and we're going to try and take care of him, right? That is not what the Packers said about Jair Alexander this offseason. It was one of those, we'll see what happens type situations. Like, you said more than enough. You said a mouthful without saying much at all. And so I just think they're sick of his antics. He's oft injured. He's one of those guys that I believe thinks he's better than what he truly is, right? He's the guy on the basketball court that thinks he's got these tremendous handles, but he really can't dribble all that well. And then when you pluck him, he wants to call foul, right? Loudest guy on the court, but he's really not that good of a hooper. That's Jair Alexander. The ultimate confidence, but nobody gets cooked more in the league at the cornerback position than Jair Alexander. Now, I will say he's not lacking for confidence, and he's not afraid of taking on the tough assignments. And that comes with the territory. If you're a shot blocker in the NBA, then you're going to get dunked on, right? Because your forte is, I don't care. I'm trying to block your shot, and everybody wants to try to be the guy to dunk on you, right? Just comes with the territory. He's not afraid. But I've always told you, being afraid is not a prerequisite to getting your ass whooped. So I think you couple the fact that he's not as elite as he thinks he is. He's oft injured. He's done a series of, asinine things, including going out to the coin toss when he was not a captain of that game and wasn't even active in that day's game, and went out for the coin toss, unbeknownst to his entire team as a prank and a joke, and ended up being suspended for a game based off of that. I just think they've had their cup overrunneth with Jair Alexander, and they're looking to get out of the Jair Alexander business. This is not a strong cornerback draft class, unlike edge rusher or, to a lesser degree, wide receiver, but tight end, where it's going to be a lot tougher to convince someone to give up some draft capital because I'll just get one in the draft. This is not a great cornerback draft class. It is not. And so the value of a Jalen Ramsey or a Jair Alexander, I think, holds true, right? Dallas Goedert's value diminishes with the amount of tight ends that have talent in this year's draft class. Kayvon Thibodeau's value diminishes with the amount of talent available in this year's draft class at the edge rushing position. The same cannot be said for the cornerback position. And thus, Jair Alexander is a guy that I think will interest some teams looking to upgrade their cornerback situation. Now, again, what are the Packers looking for, et cetera, et cetera? These will be intriguing storylines to follow, but I wouldn't be shocked if we get to day 2 of the draft and we hear that the Green Bay Packers have shipped off Jair Alexander for a 3rd-round pick. I wouldn't bat an eye if that were to come to fruition, right? Or even a 4th-round pick at this point, rid themselves of the issue and move on, right? Sticking in that division, another guy that could be available, and I'm kind of torn on this one. I don't really know, but clearly the Chicago Bears want to upgrade their running back position. They gave DeAndre Swift a solid NFL contract for the running back position. We saw a lot of running backs get, solid contracts a season ago, $8-9 million a year type of deals. We saw it with Tony Pollard in Tennessee. We saw it with Swift in Chicago. And obviously we saw the big money handed out to some of the premier backs. Derrick Henry didn't get a lot of money, but he produced like a premier back. Saquon Barkley got good money. So did Josh Jacobs. It was a good free agent class of running backs. Swift was a part of that. And at times he was really good for the Bears last year, but not good enough, apparently, as they want to upgrade the position. Now, it makes a ton of sense. Ben Johnson's coming in there. He's coming from Detroit. They had a 2-headed monster. Maybe that's what he wants in Chicago. And there are rumors that the Bears are hunting Ashton Jeanty, and there's a chance that he could fall to them at number 10. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility that Jeanty falls to the Bears right in their lap at number 10. That said, should Jeanty be gone before the Bears have an opportunity? They've also been rumored to be very intrigued by Travion Henderson. Again, Henderson feels like a duplicate of DeAndre Swift. So I don't think those two can coexist in the same backfield. They're the same guy. And in Detroit, if you're trying to mimic what they had and emulate that, you're looking for a big, powerful first, second down back to couple with the dynamic ability of a DeAndre Swift or a Travion Henderson. In any event, the Bears feel like they've drafted, backs over the last couple of years. I feel like they've got a big physical back that they've drafted already that might be going into year 3, right? And so they don't need that. What they need is the complement to that guy. And if Henderson is on their list, if Jeanty ends up being the pick, then if Jeanty's the pick, then I think Travion Henderson or DeAndre Swift is fine. Okay, I think he's fine. Because even though Jeanty can stay on the field on 3rd downs, I think you just could keep DeAndre Swift there and be fine. If Travion Henderson is the pick, however, I think DeAndre Swift becomes available. And maybe no matter what they do, Swift becomes available. Any back that they add to their roster may make DeAndre Swift available and expendable. Again, it's very hard for me to see a team, and this is as deep a running back draft class as we've seen. I find it very hard to believe that someone's going to want to give up anything and have to pay him, $8 million a year for 2 years or whatever that number is, based off of the talent that exists in this year's draft class. I think that's a hard sell. I don't care how close you feel you are, or if you think this veteran back puts you over the top. Just grab one of these young boys. Right? I just I don't see them being able to get off of Swift, and maybe they're not interested in moving him. But obviously, adding a Travion Henderson makes things really crowded in that backfield if that were to take place, or even a Genty for that matter. So Swift feels like a guy that could be available, but in this climate, don't feel like there's going to be any movement the Bears' direction whatsoever. And this name is interesting, and this thing could get really funky. Like I could throw out a bunch of guys that aren't getting traded, but it's intriguing to think about it, right? Case in point, Kyler Murray in Arizona. Like, what if the Cardinals saw Shedeur Sanders and said, you know what? Shedeur is a guy that we really like. Quietly, they did their homework on Shedeur and feel like, hey, this is exactly what we need. We can hit the reset button with the quarterback position, and we can move on from Kyler, get from under his contract, and get a guy that's going to give us a chance in Arizona. Not going to happen. But there's a chance that Shedeur Sanders is on the board at pick, I think, what Cardinals are what? 14 or 16, something of that ilk. But the real team in that division that could look to get off of a guy is the San Francisco 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. Now, we knew about him being available in the offseason. It was brief because they were trying to move on from him prior to the bonus that he was supposed to receive on April the 1st. So all of these trade rumors kind of surfaced like around March the 28th, where it got really hot fast, right? Like, oh shit, Brandon Ayuk's available again for the second year in a row after getting a massive contract. But he's coming off of an injury and no one wanted any parts of that, right? So the 49ers were trying to offload him before they had to pay him the over $20 million bonus. There were no takers, obviously. And so once they paid that bonus, it becomes a lot less likely that they try to move Brandon Ayuk. The damage is done, essentially. He's of more value to them now that they've paid him out that large lump sum of money than to ship him off somewhere else. But if a team were to come calling and they had an attractive offer and they were willing to eat the money, I bet you the 49ers would be listening. But I don't think Brandon Ayuk is going anywhere. And obviously the injury complicates things too. So just something to note. Speaking of injuries complicating things, just another guy before we move on to the AFC. Trayvon Diggs in Dallas. There were a lot of rumors swirling around him and his availability in terms of being traded. Jerry Jones has said publicly that he's working on a couple of trades. The last time he said that, the Cowboys traded for the New England Patriots quarterback, right? So I wouldn't, Joe Milton, just so you know who I'm talking about. So I wouldn't dismiss Jerry Jones when he says that he's working on some trades. A lot of fans of the Cowboys went directly to wide receiver and Cortland Sutton. He's having, I don't want to call it a dispute with the Broncos. We'll get to Sutton a little bit later on over a contract, but he's on the last year of his deal. None of it is guaranteed. It felt like a deal that, a contract that was movable. Cowboys need a compliment to CeeDee Lamb. That's the dots that they were connecting. I think it's more likely that they try to move Trayvon Diggs. Highly unlikely. Again, there's a chance that he doesn't play at all in 2025. Who's trading for that, right? He's not going anywhere, which is why I didn't name him, but it's just another name to just keep in mind. And for you Commanders fans out there, we're not trading Daron Payne. Stop it, okay? So now you get to the AFC. And Jalen Ramsey, cornerback of the Miami Dolphins, was made available probably 2 weeks ago. And I think that was done intentionally, right? They knew no one was going to bite immediately. But as I just mentioned when I was talking about Jair Alexander, this is not a strong cornerback draft class at all. And if you're a team that is a veteran-laden team that is looking to win something of note, Ramsey could still be a really good corner for you. And if you have aspirations of him playing for you into the twilight of his career, he strikes me as a guy that would be smart enough to be able to make the transition. And he's physical enough and he tackles to make the transition to safety. So there could be even more of a shelf life on his career than, the normal 30-plus-year-old corner, right? Wherever he is at this point. I think he's 30, maybe about to turn 31, something of that nature. But the Dolphins are looking to get out of the Jalen Ramsey business. I think they put that out there and floated it out there a couple of weeks prior to the draft for this exact purpose, to give teams an opportunity to mull over it. And obviously, with the draft class not being as strong, you better go in and get your corner early and not wait, because the pickings are slim. That's one of those while supplies last positions in the draft. So, with that said, Ramsey becomes a commodity that teams who missed out on one of the upper echelon corners may be coveting. We'll see if the Dolphins can get out of the Ramsey contract and move on from him. Again, most of these guys that we're talking about aren't going to get dealt because, again, teams aren't looking to acquire contracts. They're not looking to add aging veterans and have to give up draft capital at the same time. But sometimes the offer makes sense for where you are as an organization and where you are in your timeline and trajectory. And, you need a guy to put you over the top. Say you're the Buffalo Bills. And again, I don't think financially they're in a position, and I don't even know if the Dolphins would want to trade in the division, but I don't know if the Bills are financially in a position to do that. And they've been doing a great job of taking care of their own, which is what the good organizations do. But the Bills could definitely use, a guy like Ramsey. So just, again, another team to throw out there, right? And just another name to throw out there. The Jets just recently picked up the 5th-year option on both Garrett Wilson and their edge rusher. Who else was in that first round class? The edge rusher out of Florida State. Why am I blanking on his name? Y'all put his name in the chat. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He got injured last year and missed a huge chunk of the season last year. But those two are interesting to me. Now, again, Jermaine Johnson, thank you, Game Bomber TV 2. Game Bomber 1 TV 2. Jermaine Johnson and Garrett Wilson both had their 5th-year options extended, or picked up, rather. So while on one hand it feels like those guys are going to remain Jets, they feel like they're a part of the short-term and potentially long-term future of the Jets. It could also just simply mean that they put themselves in a position to deal these guys, because it's a lot easier to deal a player who has multiple years left on their contract than it is a guy that has 1 year. Then it feels like a rental. I'm not giving you a 3rd-round pick for a guy that's only going to be here for 1 year, right? So generally, when you see a player with 1 year left, they're trading for him knowing that they're going to extend him, right? They don't have to wait to see what this guy's about. We know what he is. His track record it precedes him, and we're just going to go ahead and give him the bag right now, right? But when you're not sure, or you just need time to see, You want that 5th-year option. You want multiple years. So the Jets have put themselves in a position where they wanted to deal either one of those first-round picks in this year's draft class. Because remember, this is what you got to understand. We've seen this time and time again. I got a buddy that's a Raiders fan, and he was bitching and complaining about all of the Raiders that they lost. There were core guys that were allowed to walk in free agency. Trayvon Merrick and Robert Spillane and Divine Diablo. And, the names go on and on. Guys that were good players for the Raiders. And he was like, they didn't keep any of our stuff. And I was like, that's not his stuff. That's not John Spytek's stuff. He just got there. He's surveying the scene, and he's like, don't need that. That's not mine. I'm good on that. What do you think Darren Mogi is doing in New York with the Jets right now? He's surveying the scene and saying, I mean, Garrett Wilson's cool, but I didn't draft him. And if somebody says, hey, Darren, what's going on? Garrett Wilson, just asking, just wondering, is he available? He's like, I'm listening. The right offer comes, Garrett Wilson could be available. Now, right now, it feels like the Jets aren't in a position to move on from a receiver, right? Their receiving position isn't great right now, but they draft one or two guys this year, and all of a sudden, maybe Garrett Wilson becomes expendable. Same could be said for Jermaine Johnson, right? You just never know, right? They drafted an edge rusher this year, and they might say, hey, look, I'm not even looking for a big return on this investment here. Like, you just give me a 4th-round pick, you give me a 5th-round pick, and you can have Jermaine Johnson. I doubt they do that. This guy's gotten them double-digit sacks already in his career, prior to the injury. So I think they feel like those two guys are Jets. But just, again, a couple of names to mention as we move forward. Now, in the AFC North, there's a lot of heat surrounding this division. Plenty of it. Let's start with TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay, I know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. He's not going anywhere. But this is not the Steelers' MO. They don't generally drag their feet when it comes to taking care of one of their own. And we're not just talking about any of one of their own. We're talking about a future Hall of Famer in TJ Watt. They don't generally drag their feet when they're doing these things, right? Case in point, Hayward, right? Cameron Hayward. He's like 80 years old, and they keep giving him extensions and more contracts because he's been that good for them. He's a Steeler lifer. They're not going to allow him to go anywhere. Just like they're not going to allow TJ Watt to go anywhere. But I get why he's frustrated. He's watching them trade for DK Metcalf and then give him an extension. And he's like, what the, bro? How this new dude come in here get money before me? They'll take care of him. He won't be available, during the draft. But it's just worth noting that nothing has happened, and he's not happy right now. But they're not getting rid of TJ Watt. He's a staple in Pittsburgh. Someone that is available, I believe, is tight end Mark Andrews in Baltimore. Not the most, if it is coming to an end, he just became the all-time receptions leader or touchdown leader, or one of the two in Baltimore's history this past season. It wouldn't be the most harmonious exit. The warm and fuzzies won't be what Baltimore Ravens fans remember with Mark Andrews, should that Bills playoff game be the final time he dons the Ravens jersey. Obviously, it was not a great game for him. Very forgettable, as a matter of fact. However, the Ravens have been very non-committal on Mark Andrews. And I already told you what non-committal usually means. Again, if you want to diffuse the situation, it's very simple. All it takes is, we love Mark. He's a part of this organization, and we're going to take care of him. Or, we love Mark. He's a Raven, and, he's not going anywhere. Done deal. Right? It's over. They did not do that. We'll see, about Mark. Okay. Gotcha. Translation, a lot of talented tight ends available this year. We're looking to move on from Mark Andrews. This is very similar to Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. Veteran tight end, done a lot of great work, really good football player, but you're getting older, and we're not committing to you with this deep tight end draft class coming in. I could see the Ravens drafting Terrence Ferguson, who I think is going to be an animal at the NFL level, and just saying, all right, Mark, it's been real, bro. Deuces. We'll see. It feels like Mark Andrews has played his last snap in Baltimore. I'll just tell you that. Then there's the old Trey Hendrickson saga in Cincinnati. Feels like this has been going on forever. Forever. Yet, here we are again, talking about Trey Hendrickson, wanting a deal, and the Bengals are dragging their feet. He finally said something because he had been the good soldier this entire time. And finally, he was fed up, and he said, they're not dealing in good faith. They haven't come to the table. They haven't communicated with me. This is BS. But he didn't say it that way. They came out, we're disappointed. And he's like, bro, come on now. We've been down this road. I've been handling this as well as one can, but I'm at wit's end now. Like, if you're not going to pay me, then just ship me somewhere where they will pay me. And it's not that simple. It's complicated. It is simple, but it's complicated for the Bengals because they're like, bro, you're worth more to us than to just give you away. And no one's trying to give us what we want for you. And really, the price that they've been asking for has been ridiculous. It's one of those, if you want him, you got to give me this, 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 and that. And they're like, come on, man, stop playing. You serious? And they was like, yeah, because they don't want to trade him. Well, again, deadline spur action. If they're really looking to move him, this is the time that it would take place. Again, the edge rusher position is deep this year, but if you're a team looking to get over the hump, I don't know if you're going to have a young boy come in and get you, 14 sacks like Trey Hendrickson has been doing. But now he's on the wrong side of 30. He wants a deal, obviously, so you can't trade for him and not give him money. And what if his best football is behind him now? These are all questions you have to ask yourself. This is why he's pissed off, because the longer they wait on giving him his extension, the less likely it is that he's going to get one from someone. So it's a very, very nasty situation. You hate it for Trey Hendrickson, but ultimately the Bengals hold all the cards, and I don't expect them to deal him during the draft. But the right offer comes about. Trey Hendrickson can finally get his wish. He doesn't want to leave Cincinnati. Make no mistake about it. He wants to be there, but he wants to be paid more than he wants to be in Cincinnati. And if they're not going to do it, then he would like to go somewhere where it will get done. So that's a name to keep in mind. But again, I don't anticipate him getting dealt. Real quick, if you're out there and you're watching this, first and foremost, thank you. I greatly appreciate you. There's over 200 of you out there, but yet only 50 likes. Make that make sense. I'm a 3-to-1 ratio guy in terms of viewers to likes. So I'd like to see that like number go up. I mean, there's no reason to not have 100 likes, to be honest with you. So if you haven't already done so, please do me a huge solid and hit the like button. Subscribe for more great content if you haven't already done so, and turn on that notification bell so you won't miss a thing. And then finally in Cleveland, and this one is very fascinating. I just talked about any corner that's available is fascinating to me. So obviously the Cleveland Browns sit with the number 2 pick, and the likelihood is that they make a selection, and taking it a step further, that selection more likely than not is going to be Travis Hunter, the star two-way Heisman Trophy winning player. So one of the two positions that he is phenomenal at is cornerback. Well, to me, the best usage of Travis Hunter is to make him a full-time corner and give him packages of plays on offense to satisfy his desire to play on offense. It is a lot harder to make him a full-time receiver and then say, hey, we're going to put in a couple packages for you to play defense. That's not how this works. Generally, we've seen this before. He's not the first two-way player to come into the NFL. We've seen this work. We know how it goes. The easiest way to maximize his skill set is to put him on defense and say, hey, we're going to put in a couple packages for you to play receiver as well, right? Assuming that that's what happens. They made it seem like if they drafted him, they were going to play him mostly at receiver. I get that because you really don't have a ton of talent outside of Jerry Jeudy at the receiver position. I get it. But he is adamant he wants to play both ways. So if that comes to fruition, you start looking at the corners on the roster and you say to yourself, who's expendable? I'm looking at Greg Newsome II and I'm saying, Greg. 4, 3, 2, 1, your time is up. Now, what's going to be interesting is if they decide to do the wide receiver thing, maybe trading away Greg Newsome II isn't the best thing to do. But again, assuming that you go the route of corner with a sprinkle, a smatter of offensive snaps, all of a sudden you don't need Greg Newsome II because you're not getting rid of Jimmy Ward, obviously. So, and Emerson doesn't hold the same value, right? So Newsome, former first-round pick, will be available, good corner. Again, you throw him in the mix with Jalen Ramsey and Jair Alexander. He's the cheapest of the three. He's the youngest of the three. He, to me, would command the most interest of the three in terms of affordability. Contract isn't significant. He's younger. And it's not going to cost you as much in terms of draft capital. So he'd be the one that I wouldn't be shocked to see the Browns, look to move if they were to draft Travis Hunter. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. And then we wrap this thing up with Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton in Denver doesn't feel like a guy that's on the move. But and just so we're clear, he had career highs in targets and catches last season in Bo Nix's rookie campaign. And they made excellent music together. The Broncos have, and this is what I've talked about, they came out and they publicly said, Courtland Sutton's one of our guys. We're going to take care of Courtland. There's dialogue and we're going to get it done. That's what it sounds like when a team is interested in making sure you stay a part of the family. So, in good faith, Courtland Sutton has shown up to the offseason program, which he did not do last year when he was seeking a new deal. He's shown up this year to OTAs in good faith because the Broncos have already told him, once the draft is over, we're going to hammer out an extension for you. Sounds good. And I believe them, first and foremost. However, the NFL is a dirty, dick, dastardly business. And on one hand, they could tell him, hey, we love you, Courtland. You're a part of our future. You're our number one wide receiver, and we're going to take care of you. On the other hand, they could draft themselves a stud. Let's say Tet McMillan falls to him at 20 or wherever they're drafting in this year's draft. I think it is 20, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's say Tet McMillan falls to him at 20. And they're like, oh, shit. And they take him. And then all of a sudden, they look around. Remember, last year, they drafted not one, not two, but 3 wide receivers. All of them played well last season, by the way. Marvin Mims, or I think Marvin Mims was 2 years ago, and they drafted 2 more receivers last year. My bad. They got Marvin Mims going into year 3. They have Troy Franklin, who was a teammate of Bo Nix at Oregon, who they drafted last year. And they also drafted Vele out of Utah, I believe. And they like all of those guys. So if you add in a Tet McMillan, do you really need Courtland Sutton? And again, Sutton is just working off of the premise of they told me they were going to take care of me after the draft, so I ain't tripping. But that was before Tet McMillan fell into their lap. And they took him, and now they're looking to move you. Again, I believe that they're going to do right by Courtland Sutton and pay him. I do. But I've seen some shady shit go down in the NFL. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Anyway, those are all of the players that I feel like are names to watch as trade bait as we head into night 1 of the NFL draft tomorrow night to kick this thing off. So we'll see if any other names that I didn't mention emerge as trade bait, as possible targets for other teams that may have not gotten what they wanted in the draft in the first, day or 2. We'll see. Some of this activity could take place after the draft, and they give up draft capital for next year. Who knows? I digress. Let's get to our next segment and transition to social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know what it is. If you're in the building, stand up. You're part of the mob. Y'all know what it is. We in the building, stand up. Big shout out to everybody in the comment section holding the kid down, as we are now just slightly over 24 hours away from the start of the 2025 NFL draft. So you guys know how this works. For those of you who do not, directions are down at the bottom of the screen. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. We will get to it if time permits and react to it. Can't guarantee you that that's going to be the case. The only way to ensure that your comment is read and reacted to is to super chat. And not only does that ensure that your comment is read and reacted to, it also forces that comment to be moved straight to the front of the line as it takes precedence over everything else. So If you want your comment to be read, you want your voice to be heard, and you want to ensure that that takes place, super chats are the way to do so. So let's get to the comment section. All right. See what you guys are talking about. My guy, rarely even. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, I gotta see the Lou mock draft. See who you have us taking at 19. Is that coming out tomorrow? No, I'm not actually doing one this year. I started to try to work on one over the weekend, but my thing about mocks are, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it my way, and I'm gonna do it the right way. And I wasn't able to do that. I could probably whip one up, to be honest with you, but it wouldn't be all the bells and whistles that you've come to know me for. And I'm weird in that way where if I'm gonna do something, I want to do it the right way. I mean, because I could have thrown out a mock draft. Could have just been me just talking and giving you my picks, but that's not how I roll. So I'll tell you who I think you guys are taking, though. Because I do believe that Will Johnson is gonna fall. And I do believe Will Johnson is the pick for you at, what are you guys at, 19, I believe? I do believe that is the pick. But I've seen mocks that have you guys taking an edge, which makes a ton of sense. Obviously, you have issues getting to the quarterback and off the edge, that is. And you went out and you signed Hassan Reddick to a 1-year deal, which shows that you do have a need there. So I could definitely see that, but I think the cornerback position supersedes that of the edge rushing position, because for what Todd Bowles wants to do, you need better play at the cornerback position. To me, this is your replacement for Carlton Davis. You miss him. I think Bucs fans might have taken him for granted, but you miss him. And Will Johnson is like the replacement for him. So that's what I think you ultimately do at 19. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Shamar Stewart, Lou. This dude is as green as Shrek's ass. It doesn't have the numbers, but he jumps off the tape. He has explosion. Yes, he does. He absolutely does. And that is the intriguing part about Shamar Stewart. There is a dilemma there that exists with Shamar Stewart. And there are a number of people who look at Stewart and they can't get past the production or lack thereof. And then there's another contingency of evaluators who look at this guy's measurables and they can't fathom him not being successful at the NFL level with his size, with his athleticism, with his length, and his God-given abilities. He plays hard. Like it's not like he doesn't play hard. He plays hard on tape, right? The numbers just aren't there. And so I think I guarantee you, he's been one of the most polarizing guys in these draft war rooms, right? These meetings that they have pre-draft to kind of set their board. I guarantee you that there have been 5 people on one side screaming that, dude, this guy's Myles Garrett. He's the exact same size, 40-inch vert, 4'6", 40, 4'5", 40, whatever it was, 260 pounds, whatever he weighs. This guy's Myles Garrett without the production. And then you got, another 5 guys on the opposite side of the room saying, exactly, he doesn't have the production. He's not Myles Garrett. He can't produce at that level. He won't produce at that level. Ultimately, he's a slab of clay, but it doesn't get much more moldable than this slab of clay. Like, this is what you want. If you believe in your coaching staff, this is the type of prospect you want. Sure, you would love the guy that comes in with the gaudy numbers, who put up 14 or 16 sacks last year in FBS, and then he would be the number one pick, is what he would be. But he's not. But if you trust your ability to coach, this is where it comes into play right here. All right. Ree, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ree writes, I used to value Mike Mayock as a draft expert until he took Clelin Ferrell 4th overall. So to me, that doesn't diminish his ability to evaluate prospects. That, to me, was a GM move. And he told us before the pick was made, he said, I'm going to shock a lot of you. And he knew it wasn't going to be a popular pick. And he knew Clelin Ferrell wasn't going to be a 15 sack guy, right? Ever in his career. He knew that when he drafted him. He was hoping Clelin Ferrell could get you 8, 9, maybe 10. But he knew he was never going to be a dominant, sack guy. But what he was trying to do, and I listened to him on the Greenlight podcast. This had to be like a year or two ago. He literally said, I drafted Clelin Ferrell to set a tone. It was our first draft, and then he was our first draft pick. And Clelin Ferrell is one of these guys that's going to hang around in the league till he's 34 years old, because if his body will hold up, because he's constantly dealing with knee issues and things of that nature. But he's a good dude. He's a leader. He's a hard worker. He does things the right way. And it's the kind of guy that in a locker room full of young, impressionable, guys, he's going to show them the right way to do things. He's going to lead by example. And he's also going to be, a vocal guy. And that's what they were looking for. So I get it. Like, it wasn't a popular pick, but he was trying to set the culture in Vegas. He was trying to set the culture. That's why he picked him. But I get it. I understand. I understand. Silver Fox Ford, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. I got Silver Fox writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Silver? AP may have given us a nugget yesterday. When asked about edge, he said, like O-line or cornerback, which I'm sure you guys are going to ask me about too. Yeah, I heard that. Like, it was a throwaway line, right? And nobody ever really did ask him about the offensive line or cornerback. But he figured that they would because of their activity pre-draft. Remember how many, and I talked about that. There were a lot of corners that they were sniffing around. There were a lot of, and again, I always tell you, it's not about the actual players that they met with. It's just the position in itself. Like, they didn't meet with any linebackers. They didn't meet with any quarterbacks other than Tommy Millott, and he's not a quarterback anymore. So they didn't meet with guys at specific positions, which I don't think they're going to take. But there was a high volume of meetings with edge rushers and tackles and corners and safeties, which leads me to believe that they're sniffing around those positions in particular. Again, I wouldn't rule out any position outside of quarterback right now, especially in the first round, because it's, I think, strictly based off of talent and, where they sit and what's available and can they get out, and if they can't and they got to stick and pick, what's the best option for us, from a talent standpoint. And so, we'll see what they ultimately decide to do, but make no mistake about it. They're interested in upgrading the offensive line. They're interested in upgrading the cornerback position. And why wouldn't they be? They should be very interested in upgrading the running back position, but I don't think they're as hell-bent on upgrading the running back position as we think. They're going to do it. I just don't think they're going to do it in the time frame and the manner in which the fans want them to. Like, the fans have latched on to Travion Henderson, and they just expect them to take him if he's available at 29, which I think he's going to be available at 29, but we'll see. I don't think they're going to take him at 29. Now, if he were available at 61, yeah, they would take him. He's not going to be available at 61. And there are going to be some options available at 61, and they may decide to pounce then, but I could see a scenario where they don't, use the 61st pick. And a lot of it hinges upon, are they able to get out of the first round and pick up an additional pick in day 2? And if that's the case, if they're able to do that, then it changes drastically what they can do, how they go about their business, et cetera, et cetera. But that was an interesting little tidbit that he threw out there. Again, it was a throwaway line, and if you weren't paying very close attention, you would have missed it. I don't think they ever doubled back and asked him about cornerback or a tackle for that matter. So, Silver V, what's going on, my guy? Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Silver V writes, been a minute. What's up, bro? It has been a minute. What's going on with you, man? I hope life's treating you well. Says, I've yet to see a mock draft with head scratchers incorporated in it, like Penix last year or Daniel Jones going 6th. Who can you see a team/player for this year that will send their fans into a state of confusion? That is a great question. Wow. Because, not every year that happens. But usually if it does, it's quarterback based, right? You just name 2 quarterbacks that kind of threw a monkey wrench into everything. I don't think we're going to see that. Now, you know what? Okay. So one right off the top of the dome would be the Saints at 9. And them not taking Shedeur Sanders, but rather taking a guy like Jackson Dart at 9. That would be insane, right? Because as we learned last year, and, this last year was a unique case. Like, you can't take last year's draft and say that this is what you should do, every year. But last year was a great case in don't wait. Take your quarterback now. Sometimes and I always tell you that one of my favorite sayings is get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. So often people get caught up in value. Who determines value? You know who determines value? The team does. This is what we value. We value this player here. You may not, but you ain't us, right? People make up this perception of what value is. Like, draft, beatnik, talking head tells you that this guy has 3rd round value. He gets taken in the 2nd round, and you go, what? That's a little early, but okay. Talking heads tell you this guy's a 5th round pick, and a team takes him in the 3rd round, and you're like, whoa, day 2 for a day 3 prospect? What are they doing? Well, they value that guy. And last year we saw teams value quarterbacks and say, you know what? I could pass on quarterback right now and double back and get one later, but why give up draft capital to come back up and get the quarterback when I can just take him right now and be done with it? Suffer the consequences of passing up some talent that might be sitting here, but getting the most important position in the sport taken care of. The Saints have a chance to do that at 9, right? Now, again, we don't know what's going to happen with the Derek Carr saga, but they've made it abundantly clear that they have an intention of taking a young quarterback. So they don't have to take a guy at 9, obviously. But if you don't, then you're swimming in that Tyler Shuck, Quinn Ewers pool, at that point, because I can assure you that you won't get a crack unless you want to trade back up. And that's the thing, is now you got to give up draft capital to do something that you could have done already. Right. So again, you might have to bite the bullet and pass up an Ashton Genty, like if that's your flavor, or the tackle, one of the tackles in the draft. You may have to pass up on that to take the quarterback, and that sucks. But you do what you got to do. I don't know. I gave you one earlier when I said Arizona could take Shedeur Sanders. That would be crazy. That's not happening though. Honestly, I don't think anything would shock me outside of, I'll say this. Todd McShay said 4 quarterbacks were going in the first round. That would shock me. Because I could see 3. I could see somebody trading back into the first round or just straight up selecting Jackson Dart in the first round. I can see that. What I can't see is Jalen Milroe being selected in the first round. He's at the NFL draft. He's there for a reason. He's got an inkling that someone's going to take him. Now, it may not happen. Guys show up to the draft all the time and have to come back the next day. We've seen it before, and we'll see it again. All right. So he could easily end up being, one of the first guys to come off the board in the second round on day 2. But McShay is like, the Rams love Jalen Milroe. And I've seen some of the quarterbacks they've taken in the past and some of the guys they've had on their roster, and he fits what McVay likes. And if that is true, he, says that the Rams could take him, or a team might have to jump in front of the Rams to get him. And I'm just like, I don't see that. But if that were to happen, whoa, or what if the Rams just took him? Remember, Stafford is like, they just gave him an extension. Milroe's not ready to play, right? He's not ready to play right now. But they just gave Stafford an extension, gave him new money, secured his future. He's going to end his career Ram pretty much. What if the Rams took him? Todd McShay claims that they love him so much. If they don't take him with their first round pick, they probably won't get another shot unless they're going to trade up back into the first round, or at the top of the second round with the Browns to get him. They're not going to get another shot. What if the Rams took Jalen Milroe? They need a developmental quarterback behind Stafford. Stafford will be done in the next 2 to 3 years. What if they took Milroe? And they could put some packages in for him. That's the one that I think, I don't know if it would like send their fan base into a tizzy, but it would send shockwaves through the draft for sure. That would be my selection there. That would be my pick. All right. Let's go through the comment section. And we'll take a couple of these, and then we'll finish up the show. John Wynn says, if the ball has to be placed at the 35-yard line with the kicker and the offense have the advantage to score a touchdown. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason that they're doing the new rule with the kickoff, is to incentivize teams to kick it in the landing zone and not in the end zone for a touchback. They thought that putting the ball at the 30 was enough of a punishment that teams wouldn't just take the touchback, but that didn't work either. So instead of them doing what I thought was the rational thing and just moving the kickoff point backwards and keeping everything else the same, they instead moved it. Like, you're doing the wrong thing. Some of these kickers just struggle to kick the ball in the field of play. Like, you're doing the wrong thing. Just move the kickoff point backwards. Like, it's not rocket science. But They love offense too, so it's a double-edged sword because they're like, fine, if you kick it in the end zone, we're gonna get more points scored. People love seeing points scored. I just it's just bullshit. It's already hard to play defense enough. It's hard enough as is. Like, that's just it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. Let's see. Ghost Rider says, "Who will they draft at 29 tomorrow?" Don't know. I've said this already. I think they're drafting an edge rusher tomorrow, and I think it's a pool of 3 guys: Donovan Izaraku, Shamar Stewart, and Nick Scorton are the 3 guys that I think they'll be picking from. Now, again, will all 3 of them be available? Don't know. Will 2 out of the 3 be available? Don't know. There may be no choice, and only one of them is available. Either you take this guy or you take some other position or whatever the case may be, or none of them could be available. That's highly unlikely. One of those 3 will be available without question. I think Shamar Stewart is number 1 of that group. I've said that. So if he's available, I think he supersedes the rest of those guys because of just off of sheer upside. If he's not available, then I think the next guy I believe is Nick Scorton. And then I think Izaraku might be 3rd on their list, even though I think they really like Izaraku. I wouldn't rule out Maxwell Hairston either at corner. If none of the options at edge rusher move the needle for them, I could see them pivoting because this is not a great cornerback class. And so they may choose to go the route of, hey, let's just get the corner out the way. We can always double back and get an edge rusher later. We like the edge rushers in this draft. We can get another guy. We're not tripping. But you can't, like, once you pass on corner and now your next pick isn't to 61, there isn't a lot left. Like, again, I know they like Quincy Riley, but I don't love him. So, yeah, I think it's going to be one of the edge rushers or Hairston. John Perez writes, Ravens are still pissed off about Andrews dropping that 2-point conversion versus Buffalo. They're not ever letting that shit go. It's not just that. He also fumbled in that game, if you recall. So it wasn't just the drop, but look, shit happens. You know, that's not why they're getting rid of him if they decide to move on. It's a business, right? He's getting older, and you know, they have a chance to draft his replacement. And in this business, you got to make calculated decisions. And, you know, I don't know what his contractual situation is, but obviously with what he's done in the league, he's probably in a position to get, you know, one more good payday. And they may be saying to themselves, we just can't do it. It doesn't make sense for us. So they're going to move on. One thing that the Ravens always have done is they stay strapped at the tight end position. They got Isaiah Likely, and I'm guessing in their mind, they're paying Isaiah Likely. His contract this has to be the final year of his rookie deal, feels like. And in their mind, they're saying we got to choose one of the two. And we're paying Likely. He's younger. He's more talented at this point of his career. We're not getting rid of him. So in a deep draft class of tight ends, let's go ahead and replace the aging veteran tight end, and let's prepare ourselves to pay the younger, cheaper option in Isaiah Likely. That's kind of what I see. I don't necessarily think it's just, oh, they're pissed and they want to move on. Like, shit happens. You know, Lamar didn't play his best game. They're not trying to get rid of him, right? So, yeah, it's more than just he didn't have a great game, but that didn't help the situation. That's for damn sure. Anyway, I digress. All right, let's wrap this show up with our final segment of the show. And of course, that is garbage time. So, NBA playoffs. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but they've gone exactly the way that I thought they would go to this point. No series has surprised me. The best series, obviously, is the Nuggets and Clippers. That has a chance to be a 7-game series. That's going to be a fun one to watch because they're two evenly matched teams. That both 4 or 5 matchups are pretty evenly matched, except, and we'll see what happens because I expect Dame Lillard to play in Game 3 as the series shifts to Milwaukee. We'll see if they can get back on track and get back in that series. But the Thunder are destroying the Grizzlies. I figured that would happen, right? I expect that to be a clean sweep. Told you guys that before that series started. The Magic and the Celtics, going to be interesting to see if the Magic can steal one. Like, they were up 9. It's easy to forget. They were up like 9 in the second half of that game. And then they showed their youth and inexperience, and the Celtics were able to take advantage and then win that game going away. But if they can steal one in Boston, they can make it a series. If they don't, they're going to probably win a game in the series, and then Boston will probably beat them in 5. I expect the Cavs to sweep the Heat. I could see maybe the Heat getting 1 at home, but they should probably get swept. The Warriors have already done what they needed to do in their series, which is still home court advantage. Now they're going to be greedy, and they're a veteran enough team to go on the road and do it. So we'll see if the Rockets can protect home and at least get 1 and give themselves a chance on the road to wrestle back home court. If they lose both of the games at home, they're done. They're cooked. Pistons Knicks is also going to be a great series. That's already knotted up at 1 a piece, and the Pistons could have easily won Game 1 as well. So that and what people forget, and a lot of times you throw that stuff out the window, but the Pistons won the season series from the Knicks like 3-1. So they've had success against the Knicks, and you can tell that they're very comfortable playing them. That's a really talented and a well-constructed Pistons roster. I really like Duran, and Cade Cunningham I like what he's doing, and they surrounded him with good players. And they're doing all of this without Isaiah Stewart. I don't think he's played in either one of the first 2 games. So the Knicks have their hands full. I'll just tell you that. I wouldn't be shocked if the Pistons won that series. This next game is going to tell me a lot, because if they go home and they take care of business, it puts the Knicks in a tough spot where they got to win Game 4, or else you're essentially saying they got 3 games to win 1. You don't want to be down 3-1 if you're the Knicks. Clippers, Nuggets. I think the Clippers are going to win that series. They should have won Game 1. They did win Game 2. Both were very tightly contested ball games. It could have went either way, honestly, but I just think the Clippers, Kawhi had an epic Game 2, and I just told you before the series started, any team with Kawhi Leonard that's healthy on it, give me Kawhi. I'm not betting against Kawhi, and so that looks like a series that's going to go down to the wire. But I got the Clippers in that series. Pacers Bucks. This Game 3 is going to tell me all I need to know. If the Bucks go home and they can't get a win, and I'm assuming Dame will be back in Game 3, if they can't get a win, then they're done. They're cooked. Lakers Timberwolves. Timberwolves did what they needed to do. Yesterday wasn't pretty, but they didn't get blown out. So they're not going to hit 8 million threes again, but they could. They're capable. Game 3 will tell me a lot. The Lakers are the better team. They should win the series, but I'm not willing to just say that that's what's going to transpire. I'm not willing to say that. Your Nas Reed is fully capable as he was in game 1. We know what Ant is capable of. Conley has been shooting the lights out of the basketball. And, you never know when DiVincenzo is going to heat up. They just got a lot of stuff. And you catch them on the wrong night, and you can get a 20-piece put on your head in terms of three-point shots made. So I'm not willing to rule them out. They have to win at least one of these games at home. That's all. Just like you prefer to win both, but just split. Then give yourself a chance in a 3-game series to give yourself a chance to win 2 out of 3. That's all you're looking to do. Because you've proven you can go to LA and win, right? We'll see what happens there. So that's the NBA playoffs. Nothing really surprising me right now. I'll tell you this. Right now, it feels like, because I don't trust the Cavs yet. Right now, it feels like Thunder Celtics. Tell me I'm wrong. If it's not Thunder Celtics, it's Cavs, Thunder Cavs. But that's what it feels like. Like, who's beating the Thunder out west? The only team I think could beat them is Golden State. And I don't trust Golden State. I don't trust Golden State. I don't think they have enough size. So, feels like it's Thunder fill in the blank. And it feels like it's Celtics. That's what it feels like to me. But we'll see. I mean, from what I've watched thus far, I think you're going to get 3 really competitive first-round series. Nuggets, Clips, Pistons, Knicks, Lakers, Timberwolves, I think are going to be. You know what? I want to see game 2 with the Rockets and Warriors. I don't want to dismiss them yet. They're young though, and I'm not sure they're ready for the show. But there could be a 4th with that series. I think the Pacers are going to dispatch of the Bucks in no less than 6, probably 5 is what it feels like right now. I feel like the Celtics are going to do the same thing. Could be a sweep, but it probably more likely than not they'll get 1. It'll be 5. The Thunder are going to sweep the Grizzlies, and I think the Cavs are going to sweep the Heat. So I think the other 4 series have a chance to be competitive. Right now, I'm not going to put the Warriors series in the competitive pile yet. Let me see what happens in game 2 first, and then I'll get back to you on that one. The other 3, I can assure you, are going to be competitive. No less than 6-game series, right? Knicks, Pistons, T-Wolves, Lakers, and this one is going 7. Nuggets and Clips. That's going 7. So anyway, that is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 499th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. We're going to be live tonight. Big draft show tonight. The final one, obviously, before the 2025 NFL draft kicks off. We're going to have the draft party. I'm in the process right now as we speak of uploading or setting up the draft party stream. I hope to see you tomorrow night for the draft party. Bring refreshments. No milk allowed, as you already know. For those of you who don't, no dairy products, or no, not dairy products. No milk. as a beverage. Anything else is allowed. You want water? Water. You want sparkling water? Shout out to Miss Perry. Hey, all of it is allowed. No milk. Okay. You want chocolate milk? Fine, but no regular milk. All right. Yeah, that's disgusting. Anyway, I'll have my wine per usual, and we will have us a time per usual. So hopefully I will see you tomorrow night, but hopefully I'll see you tonight when we talk about the draft. But in any event, chocolate almond milk, yes, that exists. It's allowed. I'll allow it. Anyway, I digress. You guys have a good one. Take care. Hopefully, I'll see you later on tonight. But if not, hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow for the draft party. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. You guys take care. Peace.